Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the October meeting of the County City Council. I usually say that before the Pledge of Allegiance, but I've done it 2 times in a row now, so get following at it. So, roll call, Dave, please.
Stagliano. Here. Gilmanin.
Present.
Smith. Here. Karki. Lalonde. Howard.
Here.
Kangas.
Here. Number 4, approval of agenda. Motion,
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Stagliano. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Against? Number 5, public hearing, or public comment, 3-minute limit, so anyone from the public wants to step up the podium and have 3 minutes to speak, you're welcome. So it looks like there's not much interest tonight, so I'm closing public comment. Now, number 6. What's this thing down? Public hearing, so David, for
Yep.
background please.
The Negaunee City Council has authorized a public hearing on the 2024 city budget for this evening. The Negaunee City Charter requires the city budget to be adopted by resolution of the council at its regular meeting in November. Analysis: the 2024 budget is a comprehensive plan of city activities for the coming year. It includes all proposed expenditures for the general fund, enterprise funds, and various special funds established accordingly to generally accepted accounting practices and governmental requirements. The proposed budget has been posted on our website for viewing.
Okay, I'll open the public hearing, so I'd like to comment on it. Closing the public hearing. So, I guess we need to,
Mr. Mayor, I don't believe you have to make a motion on this, is this the public hearing that's required?
yeah,
The budget is not done, this is the proposed budget for folks to look at. The official budget will still be available for folks to look at our November meeting. And that'll be the budget that you'll be looking at to approve at our regular meeting in November. Will also be included with that our CIP presentation and our budget message, which is required by charter for me to provide for you as well.
okay, with that, move on to 6.2. DDA ordinance amendment, so, Dave, roll please.
Public hearing. Approve the second reading and adopt the DDA ordinance amendment, changing the board terms from 3 years to 4 years.
Okay, so, yes, council?
Open public hearing first, or do you need a motion?
We have that.
Motion, public hearing?
You had one last one.
Yeah, that's what it is. Pass it.
So just,
A motion.
Just the,
okay, just the motion, yeah.
I'll make the motion then to approve and adopt the second reading of the DDA ordinance amendment, changing the board terms from 3 years to 4 years.
So it's the second.
Second, huh?
That's what I'm doing. Yes, any comment on it?
I think the,
Okay, Mr. Howard.
yeah, sorry, should've waited to be recognized by the chair. But from what I see going on around town, I think that the Downtown Development Authority has wasted enough of our money. And shouldn't be no funding coming their way anyway. Like, they should be done. They spent all they need to spend. We got a lot of other parts of this town that need attention. So,
Okay, thank you. So,
This is, I'm sorry, this is required by the state, through the state, correct?
That's
The state is, this is a state law which is requiring us to change the ordinance to,
That's correct. There's a state law that establishes the term of the Downtown Development Authority members. Our ordinance conflicted with that. It was 3 years as opposed to 4, so we're changing the ordinance, or proposing to change the ordinance to bring it into harmony with the state law.
the state.
so increasing it to one more year of a term, that's absolutely.
If it's a state law, why do we need to have city ordinances?
To answer your question, the state law establishes the authority in the communities to do this, to pass an ordinance, to create it, and to implement a downtown development authority. They provide the framework and the authority for the municipalities to essentially create a DDA. But they give you certain parameters, including the 4-year initial term of members.
All right,
Motion, approved. Okay, I guess make one, or you have to make one. So just call for a vote. Right? Okay, so all those in favor of, going from 3 years to 4 years, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, number 7, unfinished business. 8, new business. 8.1, traffic code ordinance. So, you got these?
There will be a presentation on this.
Pretty straightforward. If you don't mind, I can conduct that presentation here. And I also have the chief here to answer any specific questions to our current code and why they may agree that this is a good idea to move forward on this. Also have our attorney here, or attorneys I should say, that helped us draft this code. So this document right here is what you'll want to refer to if you have a hard time seeing the screen at all. All the stuff's in it right here. So why do we want to do this? This took us quite a long time to put together. It took roughly about 2 to 3 years, I believe. And so we want to do this because it's easier for our police department officers, our staff, and the residents of the community. Right now, a lot of these ordinances, which are codified under this one law now, are spread throughout our ordinances, and it's hard to find the information at your fingertips. It's easier now having it all under one ordinance for everyone to find and see and reference things, so they're not having to hunt and peck if they get a ticket. Our officers are trying to hunt and peck to write a ticket, or if somebody just wants to be curious and know what the law is so they don't offend the law.
Yeah, and if I may jump in real
Yes.
quick, if you'll note on page 1, where it talks about the repealer, this ordinance proposes to repeal chapter 70, 71, 72, 73, and 74, and essentially consolidate them into one new traffic ordinance, because you have several that touch on various elements of traffic within your city. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem, thank you for that clarification and information. It makes the ordinance more comprehensive, I feel. People can see everything in one spot. We cleaned up a few areas, and it's easier to read. We codified it, as Mr. Pickens said, under one ordinance. We've updated and modernized definitions. There are a few definitions of the current code that don't fit modern day uses, so that would be stuff that can be related to electric vehicles. It can be things that are related to off-road vehicles, so on and so forth. And new sections have been added to meet new objectives of the community and the residents' requests. So changes under the codified code. We're going to go ahead and move forward here. So definition clarifications, and we're going to move into that. I'm not going to read each definition, it's there for reference. If anybody has a specific question, we move on to the next page. Feel free to ask during that time. We have new definitions, as stated before. Provisions for a parking program. Provisions for food trucks. Currently, we have no ordinance on the books for food truck regulations. provisions for on-street trailer parking, provisions for campers, trailers, and on properties includes habitation of them and commercial uses of them. And then enforcement and fines.
Why do you feel it's necessary to mess with people, Nate?
I don't know if you wanna recognize the question or not.
Let's just, go ahead, continue.
All right,
Maybe
thank
I
you.
can pick it up if you.
Moving on to definition clarifications. So we have a number of definitions in here, for ATVs. We updated that, the state definition. Motor electrical vehicles, we updated that for modern changes. Side-by-side vehicles, we updated that to meet the, modern changes of those vehicles. We added provision for the ability to add, bus stops. We have code official or designee of the city added for the management of the code. Electronic propelled vehicles, we added that to meet modern definitions. Food truck, we added that again to management of the food trucks. Mobile vending units, added that for the management of those mobile vending units. We provided a means for a permitted parking program, which I'll go more in depth on what that means. Snowmobile, we added a new state definition to that to meet the state law. Storage, we added some definition to that. And then finally, temporary dwelling, we added to allow for temporary dwelling units. So all those specific definitions are in the ordinance, if you want to reference any of those. And again, should you have any questions about those definitions, feel free to ask. So, new parking provisions. Under the new parking provisions are highlighted changes. We allow for establishment of a permanent parking program. So that doesn't mean we're going to create a program where people are being metered. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about creating a program in our downtown which will allow for short-term rentals and apartments to be able to have permitted parking where they otherwise don't. One of the biggest issues we have is disinvestment in buildings in the community of private properties because they can't get parking on their property, because we have zero lot lines and people have built completely on their properties too, which has then caused the upper floors of those properties not to be utilized. So by allowing them to be utilized, by giving parking spaces out at a cost established by the council during the winter months for overnight parking, we'll see a lack of overnight parking, allows for the city to work with property owners and downtown residents to manage this issue that we have currently. And it'll increase the property use. People that own these buildings will be able to reinvest in their building and be able to get people to stay there and make more money off their property. Or they could live in the property themselves if they want to. It adds property value and increases the property tax capture overall when they reinvest in their building. What we intend to do, which we'll bring to the council, is these red parking lot spaces here are all owned by the city currently. We'll have designated locations in each of those spaces, which will be tied to somebody's permit. So for example, if I'm permit number 1 and Mr. Stagliano's number 2, I have to stay in my designated space. Because the idea here is we're gonna clean that snow from that space, and we don't want me moving to Mr. Stagliano's space because I never move when the snow needs to be removed. And then Mr. Stagliano now is having to park in the snowbank because I was the jerk, right? So we're gonna work on that with folks and make sure they understand when they need to be out of there. The council will be able to set that fee, whatever that fee is gonna be per month. It could be whatever you want. We'll bring a proposal to you. We want it to obviously be a nominal fee. We're not here to hose people. We just want to give them the ability to park there, but it's gonna be a little bit of extra cost and maintenance for our snow crews. It'll be separate, they'll be separated in these areas. The yellow lot is a proposed future lot, which has not been improved enough to be able to have that type of parking in, but our intent eventually is to improve that lot and move parking in that space as well. We're projecting right now about 25 spaces, and we'll bring more particulars on that program once this law, if approved, goes into effect. Any questions about the permitted parking program? All right, so with our trailer parking, right here currently, no parking or use of campers in the downtown streets or parking lots. That means you're not gonna be able to drive your camper and unload it in one of our parking lots and keep it there, or on the city downtown streets and just leave it there. Obviously, if it's connected to your vehicle, you can park with that legally, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Keller. New rights will be restored to private property owners. Emergency and temporary parking is established, and boat trailers in excess of 16 feet in length and 4 feet in height will be prohibited from parking on city streets, if not attached to a vehicle. So the purpose, preserve parking for commerce, protect pedestrians, provide better access for emergencies, provide, provide for use opportunities to property owners, and provide exception for emergencies. So one of the things that we're proposing that currently is under the law is you can't store your camper on your property unless it's inside of a building, basically inside of the building. And the next couple slides will be describing how we want to change that ordinance to give and restore rights back to property owners for storage on their property. Lastly, I would say this emergency and temporary parking establishment here, that was not part of the current law, but was an administrative order that was imposed on me to residents. So if you had an emergency, for example, you have your camper connected to your truck, and then some flat tire happens, or something happens with your camper where you have to stop on the street and park it, they could call the police department and get a temporary waiver for 72 hours to get that trailer fixed. And our police department's always working with people all the time. If they need more time to do that, a couple more days, because parts have to come in or whatever, we'll work with those people. But we wanted to afford this opportunity in case that happens, because we don't want to have to tow people's trailers off the street if there's an actual real emergency. So is there any questions on these provisions? This is just some examples that we don't want to see. Okay, camper trailers. So new storage rights restored to property owners, new use rights restored to private property owners, and new regulations governing storage and use. So this provides more opportunity for safe use and storage, and this protects the neighbors from nuisances. So here's a great example of a property. The green represents a lot. So you can see the blue is where the house is, you can see where the garage or storage building is. You can store that camper in your building if you want to, in your storage, if it fits in there, right? But most people aren't gonna build a building to store their camper in. This is not practical. In a lot of these lots, it's not practical here with the way we have garages in the community. You can store it technically in your driveway. It's not in the front yard, right? Okay, so that's able to happen. You can store it in the backyard and the side yard, as you see in example 1, and where it says backyard. If you can maintain the 5-foot perimeter around that camper at all times. So we don't want you parking it next to your house, you only have 2 feet. We don't want you parking it next to vehicles where we can't get around. This is for fire safety. So that's the biggest issue. And that's one of the reasons why we never allowed campers to be in there, and some people consider the campers to be unsightly. But when you go around the community, most people have fairly good campers, and if they keep up on them, then we shouldn't have any nuisances from flood, really. The other issue is we're allowing people to stay in those campers if they want to, from Memorial Day to Labor Day, I believe is what we have in the ordinance. Now, it's not a thing you can rent out to people, it's you or your immediate family, okay? And also on top of that, we have 2 safety provisions which need to be answered should an officer or person of the city that's charged with asking these questions ask the property owner, do you have a working fire extinguisher in your camper, and do you have a working smoke detector in your camper? That's all we require. That's just to protect people and prevent fires from happening, hopefully, and spreading on to other people's homes or properties. So that is a restored right. You could not stay in a camper in your yard on your property because you couldn't store a camper in your yard on your property. We actually have provisions in the law that says nobody can stay in a camper in the city limits in the future. In addition to this, excuse me, if you're on a commercial property, we do allow for commercial activities to happen, so that could be construction of a home, or for example, you see folks over there by Super One, they're selling fireworks, and they stay in there for security apparatus, because they don't want people stealing their fireworks, so they stay overnight in those areas. That's allowed use, although it's not allowed in the B1 district, which is downtown. And then lastly, you can see, we do not allow for storage, that's continuing in the front yard, or in side yard, example number 2, because that piece of property is too narrow to be able to do that. So are there any questions about this example here that anybody has?
Yeah, just real quick.
Sure.
What's the difference between side yard 1 and side yard 2?
So side yard 1, and this is not to scale, we're saying that there can be a 5-foot parameter established around a camper that was stored on there. Let's say that's big enough for a camper there. This one's just so narrow, it's kind of like you're right next to your neighbor's fence almost, so you don't want that. You have to be able to get around it with a fire hose, basically. So, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so we have provisions for food trucks and mobile vending units. So this is a brand new article, definition added, programming permits and policies will follow. We'll bring something to you. The staff is able to create this program and it's fluid, so if we need to change it, we don't need to come back to council and inhibit people from being able to come to the community and sell their products. And then fees to be established by council. So this provides for permits and fees, provides for establishment of zones locations to conduct sales on public properties or public streets, not private properties. There are certain codes under our planning and zoning that would prohibit certain activities, obviously. Provides for safe and orderly operations, and will provide for guidelines through city policy for on-site operations. So for a couple examples, we might say you need to provide a garbage can. You need to provide your own source of power if we don't have one available for you. And then another great example would be, here's the sidewalk, here's the street, we want the window facing the sidewalk side, not the street side, because we want people in the street lining up and getting hit potentially. So there'll be some other provisions. Again, this will be a fee that's established by the council. It would be an our suggestion for a full year. I know Ishpeming charges $500. We certainly don't have to charge that much. I mean, there's not a lot of administrative costs in it, but is this something we should regulate? And we should pick strategically where we want these trucks to be located. Certainly we don't want them in neighborhoods, for example. We'll have them around city properties, downtown, and other areas that make sense. We'll have a map that's provided to council for some oversight. Any questions on food trucks? Here's this kind of an example of what this map might look like. This isn't exactly what it would be. So in the orange zone, you would be able to maybe put your food truck, for instance. And then lastly, enforcement and fines. So this allows for safety enforcement of campers, trailers, and residential properties. This whole ordinance allows for the city to abate violations of this ordinance. So just like our nuisance codes, just like our blight code, we have the ability to take care of it if we want to, legally. We can fix the problem, we can tow something away if we need to, whatever needs to happen. And then, as long as it's legal, obviously. And then lastly, allows for the city to recoup cost of abatement if necessary. So, if we tow somebody away from their trailer off their property, for instance, this is just an extreme case, because of whatever the circumstance may be, but it's legal for us to do, they would have to recoup the cost of that towing fee. We would recoup that by sending them a bill. They did not pay that bill, then we can assess that bill to the taxes, for instance. So that's just one of the options we may have underneath this ordinance. Any questions on the ordinance? Mr. Mayor, that concludes the presentation.
Well, myself, I like the idea of, with the campers on your own property, just kind of opening it up more to be more, home user friendly with the campers and being on their property, for which I remember having a council meeting with the ice arena, and kind of didn't go over very well, but I see this is kind of making it, more user-friendly, so I'd like to see that, give people more of a chance to use their property.
I agree with those comments. I was at that meeting too as well when we started to, enforce the non-parking on the city streets. And it's been pretty good. We don't have a lot going on. Like I said, that was about 3 years ago. A lot of folks have gotten used to it. There's new people that come to town that don't know about it sometimes. There's visitors that come from out of town that don't know about it. But our police department's really good. I don't even know, Chief, you can account for this, whether we've even given any tickets out at all. Generally speaking, we do give warnings. Do you want to speak on that?
We have not had to issue the citation. Everybody's understanding of the ordinance, and the neighbor would really appreciate it, just because of the lack of parking. We put a 30-foot, 40-foot trailer out there, it's taking up 3-4 spaces for the neighboring homes, so.
The other
We wanna
issue,
see.
the other issue we have with that too is obviously size, and you wanna be able to see sight distance, and then also with fire trucks to be able to put fires out. If you have a big old camper in front of somebody's house too, that can be somewhat difficult to some degree too. And, you know, there are pictures online, if you look, where these things are lined up, it's like a wall, and you can't even see, so it can be awfully dangerous. But yeah, allowing the provision for storage on property will help a lot of people who are already doing this to some degree. We knew we were bringing this to council, so we're not really, heavily handed in enforcing that part. And we do know people on occasion stay in these campers too, by affording them the ability to stay in those. We didn't see any harm as long as we can provide the fire extinguisher, the smoke detector, and the 5-foot parameter, which we have talked with the fire department about as well. Any other questions or comments?
I guess I got one more. If it comes to vendor trucks, will that affect the ice cream truck going by my house?
Well, that's one thing we'd have to look at the policy. I mean, I think that one of the things we're more worried about is somebody who might be, stationary and selling, like setting up shop a little bit. We'd have to look and see how the ice cream truck situation could occur. I don't know if there's many of those, but that's something we could look at, should that, come forward or make some type of administrative ruling concerning that.
I got a question on the vending trucks. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask or not.
Not really.
Okay.
You can ask me.
Okay.
Point of clarification for me, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
When you're talking about permitted parking in the downtown area, are we talking about people who are already parking here because they've got nowhere else to park? Are we
no.
talking about taking spaces away from people who are bringing business to our downtown?
No, so,
How is this gonna work?
so the program still has to be worked out, right? So
Okay,
it's meant to be used during the winter months when we have our parking ban.
okay,
And we don't allow overnight parking in our lots, especially in the winter time. So that's where kind of the hiccup is. We've been working with people who already live downtown, they have apartments only, or Airbnbs, they work with the police department, because we knew this was coming this way, we're hoping to be able to provide a legal means for them to do that. Otherwise, we don't have legal means, we just have to tell them, you need to find somewhere to park, and it can't be in the city street, and it can't be in a city parking lot. So it'll be a time restriction, so they'd be guaranteed their parking spot, maybe like, let's say from 8 PM to whatever time the next morning, or in the circumstance of a snowstorm, which produces enough snow, they'd have to be out by a certain time, and we'd just be able to get that cleaned up for them. So it wouldn't be all day long, it's designed like in the commerce hours, that people will be able to park there during the day.
yeah, I mean, that's, you kinda answered it, I mean,
Yeah.
if you're gonna take one spot and designate it for
Yeah.
the entire day, I mean, you're taking away from where
Yeah, we wouldn't do that.
residents can park to get downtown.
Mhm.
So I'm, that would be my one concern there is, I mean, as part of this project, we're losing a couple spots already, and now potentially looking at restricting it even more. I would question that if it came to that, so,
Oh,
thank you.
definitely not do that, yeah.
I think the whole ordinance is a mess. It's like you're taking a bunch of stuff and trying to pack it all together in one deal. And some of it is okay, and some of it ain't okay. When we come in here and we say the Pledge of Allegiance, and talk about liberty for all, Well, goddammit, I got a boat trailer, I'm sorry. I got a boat trailer that's over 16 feet, so I can't park it on the street. Even though there's license plates on there, I got it registered, I paid my road tax, just like you pay on your car. So what's next? You talk about, well, you can have a camper in your driveway, but you can't have it in your, you know, in your front yard. Well, some people have driveways in their front yard, believe it or not. I mean, really? So what about the people who have driveways in their front yard, which actually face the street? You can't call that your backyard, can you? I mean, I can call my yard what the hell ever I want, can I? I mean, this is kind of a mess, and you're trying to take all of this stuff, pack it all together, and let Nate be in charge of it.
Do you have any answer, Mr. Mayor?
I wanted you to answer my first question, for Christ. I'm sorry.
Please use appropriate language, please, Mr. Howard, thank you.
I'm trying.
Okay.
He says ask any questions you want, and I ask him a
Ask
question, he
it
doesn't
profe-
answer
ask
me.
it professionally.
I'm trying to be. He got up to do a presentation.
Okay.
He said, ask me any questions at any time. I asked a question,
Okay,
and you just
made
passed
your,
it by.
you made your point, you made your point. Okay, maybe if I ask the police chief Cadillac, you can maybe,
Well, I can answer some of the question. and
okay,
Chief would
then
like
maybe
to-
if I ask the chief, and maybe he's
Well,
two, three
so
cents.
there are, believe it or not, definitions of front yards and driveways. That's in our planning enabling code. If you have an established driveway, then yes, you can park your camper there now. You can park your boat camper in there too as well. No one's saying you can't do that. But under the current law, you cannot park your camper in the front yard. You can't park it anywhere on your property.
You're only talking about a camper right now.
He's answering your question.
There's more
Mr.
than one
Mayor,
kind of
I
trailer.
believe he's talking about trailers in general, whether it's a boat, camper, utility.
Well, it should say that then. You can't say, oh, campers, but, oh, boats. Cause some people got campers that are 35, 40 feet long. And what, because we live in town, you're not supposed to own nothing? Right, you're not supposed to enjoy the outdoors? Because, oh, well, gee,
Mr.
you
Mayor,
own a
John,
camper,
can you
it's
answer
something
the
you're
question?
using regular.
So the current law states, and it's been here for years, that you cannot park your camper on your property unless it's inside of the building. That's just the code. We are affording additional rights to people to be able to store their camper on their property as long as they can have 5-foot parameter around it for fire safety reasons.
You're still only saying
So-
campers. You're not saying trailers.
Mr. Mayor, if I can have a little latitude, Mr. Howard, if you read the ordinance, you would see
I
that clearly.
read, I
you would
read
see
everything I
clearly
get,
it
Nate,
says
sometimes I gotta
you would
read it 3 or
clearly
4
see it
times,
says
because you
camper.
reprint it all the
You would
time.
clearly see it says campers in there. It does not refer to wood trailers, flatbed trailers and such.
That's no, I don't think that's true. Maybe we should start reading it right from the get-go. Go through the whole pile. That's a nightmare.
You've had it for a month, that's all I can say, so.
Right, and we're not supposed to discuss it until we get here. Oh, so what, eh, Nate? So you can just do it the however you want?
Again, Mr. Howard, please,
Well, this is ridiculous.
well, so is your profanity.
Mr. Smith here says, well, I believe he's talking about all trailers. Nate won't even tell us. He says campers, campers, campers. He doesn't say trailers. He just says campers, campers, campers. Now, I read it. There's things for agriculture in there. There's all kinds of stuff in there. So don't tell me we went over all of it. I read it. I know. There's all kinds of different little funny things in there. And, like, why? People, I don't get it. Why does it all gotta be crammed together in one deal?
I guess, no, please, Chief Cadillac, can I give comment on the tweakings of this ordinance, or your take on it?
Yeah, the ordinance itself, the consolidation is gonna make it a lot easier for not only ourselves, but the general public to be able to find in reference to any question that they do have. Mr. Howard, if you're looking for the definition for, I think there's sometimes that confusion about a camper, a trailer, or a motorhome, but if you look at the definition, that is established, it means a class or type of vehicle that a trailer that people can live in or sleep when they're traveling or camping. So, that is the definition of what is loosely used as for a camper,
How does this affect all other trailers?
as far as what?
As far as where you can park them, where you can't park them?
So, again, it's gonna be determined by the size and, or what kind of trailer it is. Did you have a particular trailer in mind that you're?
Not on the top of my head, 'cause I
Okay.
could drive around town and find all kinds of trailers.
Sure, and as long as they're, and if you see most of them, and at least the ones that I see, they're usually utility type trailers or enclosed trailers that contractors and stuff are using to remodel homes.
Right.
9 times out of 10, they're attached to a motor vehicle, and on the odd chance that they do have to get left on street for repairing or working on somebody's home, we always work with them. They call us, they say, hey, I'm doing a job in town, is it okay if I leave my trailer here? We're happy to work with people. What we're trying to do is, with the old city that we do have, it wasn't designed for all these modern vehicles. We're trying to make sure that there's enough parking space for the rest of the neighborhood. That's what we're trying to do.
I understand.
Okay,
I get that.
anything else I can ask for you?
I don't think so.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. If there's no more questions, thank you, City Manager.
Okay.
I guess where we're at now is, making motions for approve the first meeting, set a second reading for November 9th meeting at 6:30, so. I get a motion,
Make the motion to approve first reading, set a public hearing and second reading for the November 9th
Councilman
meeting.
Smith,
At 6:30.
second. Councilman Stagliano. We talked enough on it. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Against?
Yeah. Stagliano,
Yes.
Ilmanen,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Howard,
I'm voting nay.
Kangas.
Yes. Okay. 8.2. USDA draw number 11 and engineering amendments. Background, Dave?
Enclosed is a resolution requesting USDA funding draw request number 11 in the amount of $717,498,016, participating in a payment of $237,689.44 to Oberstar for non-participating. There is a change order number 4 for a decrease of $237,241.45 and an engineering services agreement amendment with an increase of $40,900, changing the agreement from $680,000 to $720,900 with UPEA. Recommendation, separate motions for each. Approve USDA draw 11, 717,498.16 participating, and 237,689.44 non-participating. Approve change order number 4 with a decrease of $237,241.45. Approve engineering amendment number 1 with the increase of $40,900.
So he's gonna be voted on separately, correct? Yep. Okay. I guess, the first one, approve USDA draw number 11, $717,498.16 participating, and $237,689.44 non-participating. Take a motion,
I'll make that motion.
Councilman Smith. Second. Is that you, Tony?
Yep.
Yep. Councilman Stagliano.
engineer, yet we're still paying for engineering services from somewhere else.
Do you want to answer the question?
Want to go?
They said somebody did.
As stated before, and this project's been ongoing since last year, we hired the engineering firm to do these engineering services. And as mentioned before, we hired a city engineer last year by adding on additional duties to our DPW director. This is not one of the duties that he'd be expected to do under his employment.
So we're paying him to be an engineer, but we don't expect him to be engineering. When we need engineering, that's why we hired an engineer.
Okay, now roll call vote, please.
Stagliano,
Yes.
Ilmanen,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Howard,
Yeah. That's it.
Kangas.
Yes. Okay, number 2, approve change order number 4 with a decrease of $237,241.45. Can I get a motion?
Make a motion to approve change order number 4, the decrease of 237, 241.45.
Councilman Ilmanen, second.
Second.
Councilman Stagliano. Discussion?
No, sir.
So, it's just that. Yeah. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Roll call.
Stagliano,
Yes.
Ilmanen,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Howard,
Nay.
Kangas.
Yes. And number 3, approve engineering amendment number 1 with an increase of $40,900. The motion,
Make a motion to approve engineering amendment number 1 with an increase of 40,900.
Mr. Herman, second.
I'll second that.
Councilman Smith. Any discussion?
Yes, sir.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Over here.
They will say nay, okay.
Stagliano,
Yes.
Ilmanen,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Howard,
Nay.
Kangas.
Yes. Number 3, police servers.
At the July City Council meeting, the low bid for the police server was approved in the amount of $4,555 from Old American INC. Since that time, several attempts have been made to order the server. Old American will not return any phone calls or emails. The city received another bid at that time from 906 Technologies in the amount of $7,204.65. Council will need to decide whether to accept the bid from 906 Technologies or rebid this project.
Mayor, if I may, I made several attempts to contact this entity, T-Mobile, and so did Ann, I believe.
So kind of ghosted, yeah.
And goes to this, right?
Is there a requirement that we would bid this back out?
Well, that's kind of what we were thinking internally, that if you want to resubmit for bids, that's probably the right thing to do. However, the fact that you did already do that, you did receive bids, and this would just simply be the next lowest bidder, you probably could also award it. So it would be up to the council's pleasure.
One thing I note too, Mr. Mayor and council, that we have contacted 906, they will honor this bid. My suggestion is we rescind the award to Old American and award the bid to 906 because we need to get this thing done. It's a pivotal piece of equipment for the police department, and adding on additional time is just going to add on additional expenses. They already know what it's going to be costing them from the original bid, so if I were a company, I'd charge more, and being the only bid most likely to come in would cost us more, so.
Stagliano?
Was, the 906 Technologies the only other bid that came
Yes.
in? Okay, so if we rebid this back out, chances are, we're probably only getting 906 Technologies anyway.
I would say that's most likely because the other company was straight out of California, so.
You know, we didn't have a motion on this yet.
No.
Which was my bad, so. Okay,
Can I make a motion, Mr. Mayor? Motion to rescind, the previous award to Old American Incorporated and award the police server bid to 906 Technologies.
Second. Second, Stagliano. Discussion?
Yeah, I mean, to the point, I mean, we're looking at a bid here that's, or an estimate that's 4 months old at this point, and, you know, costs are only going up, so if they're willing to honor this price, I say don't waste your time trying to bid this back out. And I guess secondary question, as I looked at these, the biggest difference between the two from what I'm seeing is the labor installation cost. Did the Old American quote include all necessary installation?
Based on the information we have at hand, that the bid was fulfilled, so that's why they were gonna awarded it. Our perception is that perhaps they just put a bunch of bids out and maybe
Right.
they underbid themselves too much. You know how companies can do that sometimes, and maybe they're no longer a company, so
I
that's.
mean, as
that's our
I
issue.
read this quote, it more or less promised a plug and play application, and
Yeah.
I don't know that that's realistic or not.
Mhm.
And I guess my only other question, is the install on the 906 Technologies, estimate quote, is that a fixed fee or is that up to that amount depending on how much time they actually have to put in?
I'll let the chief speak on that, Mr. Mayor, if I may. He's in direct contact.
Yeah, my understanding in talking with him, I'm going to contact him to see if they would honor that bid,
Okay,
and he said that would be an all-in price.
okay.
Chief?
And I guess to that point, having a body on site being able to install this, make sure everything works the way it's supposed to, I'm comfortable with that added support, so I'm still in favor of the 906 bid.
And I'll just kind of echo that, I think it's important to have a local company, right here for any tech problems that we have, any installation problems that we have. I think the other bid, to be honest with you, is kind of sketchy low. And I think the one from 906 Technologies is a little bit more, realistic in the ballpark. And, I know 906 Technologies is a good company, they're reputable, and, they're gonna deliver what we need them to deliver, so let's not let the police department hang any longer on it.
I'll stay with the police chief sitting here.
I think we need to be more cognizant in the future as well. Sorry, I don't even recall this from July, but I can't believe we accepted a bid from a California company over a company 8.5 miles to the east, but.
Mr. Mayor, though, I'll just like to comment on that. The only reason that we would do that, they met the specs, and by law, we have to give the lowest bidder the bid. That's the only requirement. Unfortunately, it sounds like they low bid themselves too much, so
Right,
that's
yeah.
probably fortunate for us.
I rescind my statement.
Sometimes it's hard to remember that, so.
Okay, with that, motion on the floor, all those in favor say aye.
Let's have a roll call, please. Just because you're rescinding and you're spending money, let's make sure.
Okay.
Quick clarification, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Attorney, I was not at the July meeting, I had other obligations. Is it acceptable for me to make that motion since I was not part of the original?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Roll call, Lee.
Stagliano,
Yes.
Ilmanen,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Angus.
Yes. 8.4, substation relay panel bids. So, yes, Jamie, I comment on this, so feel free to.
Thank you.
That's an
Extra info for you guys.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Everybody can jump too short? No, I haven't.
Thank you. So within your existing packets, you have a recommendation letter for the relay panel bid that was opened a few weeks ago here. And that is part of the substation and distribution line project that is being built out on the south side of town. That recommendation, we received 2 bids for that, and that recommendation was for the lowest evaluated responsible bidder. It was slightly above the original estimated amount. We've seen that significantly this year, kind of starting towards the very end of last year through this year. We've seen 30% increase in both materials and labor in the electric industry with the various pieces of equipment. Some pieces have gone up greater than that. So we're slightly over the original budget amount of $50,000. I think it came in at $56,000 and change. Well below the 30 or 40% that we've seen, but at any rate, so that's your recommendation that we have in the packet for awarding that bid. And then supplemental here was the overall cost of the project. We are also over budget at this time, and we've had a chance to review the various contracts and items as a complete summary, and that's really this first little, just the very first page kind of gives you a summary process of where we're at with that. It is almost completely driven by the increased cost of materials and construction labor for those types of projects. The project is broken up into 2 pieces. There's the substation, and then there's the distribution lines that tie the substation back into the system. And that's so that we can have a substation for reliable service to all of the residents as we're replacing old equipment that is past its useful life or at the end of its useful life. Currently, that overage is, from what we budgeted at the end of, near the end of 2022, is about $700,000. From what's been bonded, we are over by about 1.3, almost $1.4 million, on a $6 million, about a $6 million project as of, it is now turned into about a about the 7.3, 7.4 million dollar profile. Still well below the 30 to 40% increase that we've seen. It's just the nature of the timing of everything in the world right now and the cost of inflation and manufacturers and how busy everything is becoming.
So, Mr. Mayor, I just invited Jamie here from PSE to kind of give an explanation as to overture for the overall project related to the substation. Tonight, in your packet, you do have the last component of that, as I mentioned at the last meeting. About $60,000 or so there, 68, if I'm reading that right from here. That's the last component for the last bid. So that puts us in a good position as to what the overall cost of the project will be. We will be in the next couple meetings or so coming to council for a funding apparatus for the substation. Most likely that suggestion to be the most financially sustainable is going to be borrowing some money from WPPI at the 0% interest rate, and also drawing down our fund balance of the electrical fund to pay for the rest of the overall project. One thing I'll note, yes, the project's over budget, but we are bonded to build the substation with the funds that we've already said we were going to build. So we're contracted with people to build that, and it just unfortunately is a circumstance at the times where the project's gonna cost more than we expected. So We're definitely not gonna be stopping the project. We're going to be forging forward to finish it and provide the services that we, the services and the goals that we outlined originally in constructing this facility. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, I didn't actually introduce myself, but I am Jamie with Power Systems. Here doing the engineering to help the utility community with the electric infrastructure improvements.
Okay. Question for Jamie, by chance? Okay, thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess with that, council, I get a motion.
Make a motion to award the bid to Schweitzer Engineering in the amount of $56,134.
Second that.
Yes, Councilman Smith? Any comment, Craig?
Yes, sir.
Toby?
Nothing to add, no.
Anyone else? Okay, so, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, number 9, consent agenda. 9.1, minutes, September 14th, 2023, regular minutes, October 5th, special minutes. 9.2, claims and accounts. 9.3, revenue expenditure reports, estimated trial balances. 9.4, surplus property. 9.5, budget adjustment, police patrols grant. 9.6, Queen Street demo bids. 9.7, early voting location resolution. Any motion?
I'll make a motion to approve and accept the consent agenda as presented.
Stagliano?
Also,
Second by Councilman Holly. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Against? Okay, number 10, public comment. 3-minute limit, public comment. Okay. Public comment. Okay, council members. Let's start with, Mr. Rummel.
Yes, sir. I have nothing, I'm sorry.
Okay. Mr. Howard?
I see a lot of things going on in the city, and, some things we seem to have our eyes closed to, and other things, I guess, we're doing all right, so, you know, I don't know that I particularly like what's going on downtown, but it'll be probably 100 years or more before anything gets done with it now, so. You wanna build a theater, but you don't want any parking, I don't get it, but nobody comes and spends money, I guess we don't have nobody to blame but ourselves. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Stagliano?
I wanted to say that I really thought that the city ordinance, the codification of the traffic ordinance was a right move, was a good move. I think that, I'm all in favor of simplifying and modernizing, updating things, especially with our city, and our, there's a lot of things in our city charter that are clunky and have been clunky, and I love the fact that we're taking a look at it and realizing that it's 2023 going on 2024, and things need to change. And if it makes it easier for I think this makes it easier for our citizens to understand the laws, and it also makes it easier for our police department to enforce those. So I just wanted to say good job.
I'll second that comment. I appreciate the consolidation and the reorganization. To the city manager's point in his presentation, a lot of that information was spread throughout our charter and ordinances, so to have that all in one spot, easy research, that makes it nice. I meant to ask to have 9.7 pull up, so I'm just gonna touch on it, the early voting location. I'm assuming we'll advertise this at some point for our citizens, but if anyone pays attention to this early voting location, our location is Negana Township. The more that are aware, the better.
guess I'll touch on the traffic ordinance thing. Seems like, first if you're moving the gun, you get to the other Iron Street, trying to get to turn either right or left, it's, been kind of a death trap. And it's nice to see that, I like to see more 90-degree angles. So we just make for a safer flow of traffic, and I really appreciate that. And I think with the whole ordinance thing being updated and consolidated, and yes, it seems like it's spread out a lot, but it really does clean it up a lot. And it's, I think it's, the police department probably would second on that also. So, and my eyes, anything that could help out the police department do their job more effectively, I say more power to it, so. Guess that's me for tonight, so, city manager?
Sure, Mr. Mayor and Council, the water tower project is completed. As you know, we did have that emergency repair that we had to conduct to actually do the work on painting and upgrading the maintenance on the water tower. There was actually a realization of savings on that project than previously quoted. Once we get all the bills in, we'll be able to let you know how much those savings were. It was over $60,000, I believe, but I think it might be a little bit more than that. Buffalo Road sewer project is completed right now. If you were to drive out to Buffalo Road, you can see that we've done a lot of paving, where you see the paving that's done on the street. Most of that section is gonna be where the sewer has been fixed. In fact, we found many manholes that were under pavement, some out in swamps, so it's collecting a lot of water that we're sending up to Ishpeming treatment plant and costing taxpayers extra money on that system. So that's been repaired and the roads are fixed up there. You will notice when you come down that road, there is one lane that is paved. We had a little extra leftover pavement, so we did decide to cover that a little bit as a temporary fix. $2,000 just to fix that little spot, because that road is not the best road, but we have improved a large section of that now, and we intend on continuing to fix roads throughout the city of Negaunee as we have for the past 5 or 6 years. Miller Road, we're working on that as well. As you recall, we just approved a bid for gravel to be put on that road. In addition to that, you approved emergency funding from the Michigan State Police for $250,000, which will improve that road further should we be awarded that money from the state of Michigan. We're still waiting to hear from the disaster relief funds of whether we'll be provided that full amount. Should that happen, there'll be a lot of culverts that are replaced, ditching that will happen, and additional gravel placed on that road. The USDA project is pretty much completed. The only other components that are left of that is some sidewalk installation and curb installation, and there'll be some paving that needs to happen in downtown Negaunee for part of the USDA water project, which is a match to our streetscape project. And moving into the streetscape project itself, we will continue to pave the roads. All of those will be paved this year. Most of them paved next week and into the following week, weather permitting. And the sidewalks, all the walkable locations, businesses will also be installed in time before winter comes. We will not be working on any of the park areas because the time of the year has already passed. So we'll be saving that work for the next season, which we are expecting to be completed before Pioneer Days. The Vista Theater is now in our possession and we own that building, so we are working on the Register of Deeds to get that final title over to us to register that. In addition to that, we will be placing it at our insurance. The county is working right now with a bid out. I believe, Dave, that's correct? There's a bid out?
It will be out very shortly, and then the county and the architect and myself decided to let it sit for a month and a week, so it gives ample time for people to, view the project and get the idea of what they have to do there and get good quality bids back. But that will not come in front of the city council, as that's a county project. All those will be run through the Market County Brownfield Authority.
In addition to that, we'll be changing the locks on the building, so we only have access, because God only knows who has access to that building prior to that. So There has also been the establishment of a Trails Committee, under the authority of the city manager, which will be investigating trail systems within the city of Negaunee. The goal is to improve the trail system, improve, recreation of those from outsiders and insiders, and to also improve commerce, in downtown by getting folks off the trail system into our downtown area on snowmobiles, ORVs, bicycles, or horses, or whatever it may be. That's just gonna be something that takes place over a year. The recommendations will come to this council for those trail improvements and future projects, in the near future. And then lastly, please, see that there are some save the dates. The next biggest one that you'll wanna save is our Tinseltown on December 9th. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Issue city attorneys.
Yeah, just real briefly, with regard to the traffic ordinance, a lot of effort did go into assembling it, codifying it, to trying to ensure that it was more user-friendly. That's been the consistent theme and drive with regard to your ordinances over the last several years, is to make them more user-friendly. And that really is the idea, and a lot of manpower went into it, including the fire department, the police department, the planning and zoning, executive, engineering, legal. And so there is a lot to digest in there. And to Mr. Howard's point, just like all of your ordinances, if something doesn't work for your community, whether it's the traffic or a provision in the traffic ordinance, a provision in any of your ordinances, you can go back and change these. And so nothing you do is locked in stone. And I think that's always important to remember, that if you get a lot of complaints or it just doesn't work for you guys, these things can always be tweaked. And that's part of the brilliance of local government. Mayor, to your point though, it does require the ice cream man to have a permit as it's written. But in reviewing lots and lots of local food truck ordinances around the community, around the city, there are additional provisions you could put in. For instance, you could maybe not have to have a permit if you're only serving pre-made, pre-manufactured frozen ice cream cones or sandwiches or something like that. This really is designed to apply to people who are making food in their vehicles, but as it's written out, it could apply to your ice cream.
Okay. Ready, anything?
No, thank you, Mr.
Yes, on that, I got a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that one.
Councilman Smith, first, and Councilman Howard, second.